Hello, people. My name is BB, and I'm a doll artist. A couple of years ago, I made my very first doll using a filament printer. I sculpted her in Blender, and I printed many versions of her until I was satisfied. But because I printed her with a filament printer, I had to cast her if I wanted her to be in a human skin tone. But the casting quality wasn't so great because it was my very first time casting something. There were also other flaws with this doll. Mainly her knee joints, which didn't work so well. Her knee joints had problems, and because of it, I decided to re-sculpt her body. I also got a new resin printer, and because it's a resin printer, I could add more details to my dolls that were previously lost due to the filament printer not being able to print fine details. My initial plan was to also cast this doll, to simply print a master and sand and prime it. So I did that, but I completely wasted my time doing that. Because when I calculated how much money I needed in order to cast her again, I realized that it was extremely expensive. And I even asked my father if he could give me the money, but he said it's probably better if I just printed her. Even though he just bought a new TV, but he said the TV was for me, so I didn't complain. Anyway, it was definitely the better decision because it's just so much easier to simply print it all. And I also was more flexible because I could just simply change a little bit and just simply print it again instead of having to sand and prime and cast it if I weren't so happy with certain aspect of my doll. And I could also easily make new body types without always having to do the same process for each body type again and again. And given that I'm still a noob when it comes to casting, it just is the better choice here. And I also decided to make a new face sculpt, and this is the face sculpt I'll be using for this doll that I'm making today. This character that I'm making is from my comic book that I'm working on, but I haven't given her a name yet. But for the sake of this video, I will call her Kiana. Maybe she will keep that name, I'm not sure. Here is a concept art, and this is the type of outfit I'm trying to make. I'm still a beginner when it comes to sewing, but I tried my best. The reason why I initially didn't want to print her is because printing in different colors is very difficult. You really have to change the setting, and I at first couldn't figure out how exactly to print in the color I wanted to print her in. So I had some test prints and some of them failed. I printed her face and it kind of failed and I had to fix it. But eventually I could make it work. But the printing process took a while. And because of it, I started making her wig first because, I still had the master and I still had her failed face to print. And that's why, where I was still waiting for the rest of the doll to print, I started to make her wig. I took inspiration from the delightful wig tutorial she made many years ago, and I also watched a video on how to make a lace front wig for humans. I don't know who it was. It was many years ago, 10 or 9 years ago or so. I combined these two methods to make a doll-sized lace front wig. The first thing I made was an elastic loop, and it was too small and I had to fix it later. Then I took a lace front wig fabric, which I believe is very stiff tulle fabric. I put it on top of her head and then sew the elastic loop onto the fabric. I cut off the excess and I put the wig cap on the doll, and I use another piece of lace front fabric, and I now try to sew it on to the front of the wig cap. After that, I cut off the excess that was underneath the lace front part of the wig cap, and then I try to root in hair into the lace using this needle hook tool, but it was very difficult, and I later used a different method to root the hair into the wig cap. The other method is to feed the hair through a needle and then use the needle to feed the hair to the lace and then tying a knot. And this method was easier, but definitely slower. I used this method to root hair into the front part of her wig, and it took forever. I think I needed 3 days to complete it. By the way, you will never guess where I got this hair from. My mom came over to visit me, and she had braided hair, and she asked me to take them out for her, and then she told me I can use the hair extension for my dolls, and that was quite convenient for me because that means I didn't have to, buy hair. So that was nice. For the rest of her hair, I used hair wreath because it was faster, and I didn't want to take 3 days for her hair again. After that, I tried to make locks, but it was very difficult because I never have made locks before. And at this stage, I really didn't like the wig, and I was so frustrated because it took me too long to make it, and I thought I ruined it. But I had to fix a lot of things off camera to make the wig look better. After I was done with her wig, I started with her face up. I sprayed her with Mr. Super Clear first, and then used watercolor pencil to sketch out her face up. The most difficult thing about a face up is to make everything symmetrical. What I do in order to make the face as symmetrical as I possibly can make it is to use the mirror, because when you look through the mirror, you can better see how symmetrical the face is and then fix it. Or you could also never use a mirror, so you don't have to deal with the disappointment of realizing that the face up isn't as symmetrical as you thought it was. I know not many people do this when it comes to their face up, but I like to draw on baby hair because I think that makes the wig looks less like a wig and more like hair that actually comes out of her head. After I was done with her face up, I sealed her once again with Mr. Super Clear. I made some changes to her face up off camera, but with that, her face is done. And I moved on to her body. I printed the rest of her body and sanded all the pieces, but first I brushed on some extra resin to make the surface smooth, but I regret doing it because instead of making the surface smooth, and made it very bumpy and difficult to sand, so I didn't do it for all the pieces. I think I brushed on some micro glitters in gold to make her skin a bit shiny. I sprayed it, I think, with Mr. Super Clear, and then with a glossy spray, and then with Mr. Super Clear again. I did this to give her skin more of a glow and to make her look more like casted resin rather than printed resin. After I was done with her body, I moved on to her clothes. I started with her jacket. I used this rainbow high jacket as a reference and used a jacket that I made before to help me make a pattern. I used the pattern that I made and traced them onto some denim fabric, and then I cut out the pieces. I took all the pieces and sewed them together with my sewing machine that I got for Christmas from my father. Instead of what I actually wanted, this specific Lord of the Rings Lego set. Which is totally fine, you know, I don't need that Lego set, you know. It was expensive anyways, and who doesn't want a sewing machine for Christmas? I mean, I should be grateful because I can do so many things with a sewing machine, right? But at the same time, I mean, look at this Lego set, like, it's so beautiful. One day I will stop being a loser, earn my own money, and then I will buy myself this Lego set. After I was done with the jacket, I realized that it looked shit, and I had to fix a lot of things yet again off camera. I painted the sleeve of the jacket with a black gradient and some red details to make them look cool and edgy. I made her a tiny black shirt, and then I ruined that black shirt, and then I had to make it again. I made her some shorts, but they were awful, and I also had to make them again. Here you see me making the shorts again by tracing some pattern on some denim fabric and cutting the pieces out and sewing them together with the sewing machine I got for Christmas instead of the Lego set that I actually wanted. But in all seriousness, I am grateful that my father supports me financially. It's just that sometimes it is so frustrating to have ADHD and autism and social anxiety, which oftentimes, you know, makes life very challenging and difficult to find a job, and it's frustrating to not be financially independent and buying things that I actually want for myself. Anyway, back to making dolls. After I was done with her shorts, I put them on the doll and glued on some accessories to make them also look cool and edgy and to match the cool and edgy denim jacket. Also to make it look closer to my concept art. I made this ribbon thing and I also painted the shorts with a black gradient. On this ribbon I painted on some symbols. I made another ribbon, this time a red one, and I painted on some letters. What do they mean, you ask? I don't know. I have no clue what it means. It's just there to look cool, okay? I glued on a jump ring onto the ribbon and attached it to the shorts, and with that her shorts were done. I made her some knee-high socks and I glued on some knee pads because even these socks need to be cool and edgy. After I was done with her socks, I printed out some shoe bases and some hair accessories. I painted on some matte varnish in hopes that the paint will better stick to the surface. But I was too impatient and the paint became really gooey. I made the toe part of the shoe using some cardboard and some faux white leather fabric. The cardboard is there for stability, and I glued on the leather fabric to the cardboard. I made some cardboard soles and then I glued on the front part of the shoe onto the sole. Then I had to figure out a pattern for the rest of the shoe, and then I cut them out and sew them together, but I had to do it again and this time I made a pattern that's only 2 pieces rather than 3 pieces. I glued on this piece onto the sole and then glued the sole onto the shoe base, which was the most difficult part of this whole process, which I didn't expect. There was a noticeable gap between the shoe base and the shoe, and that's why I used some UV resin to fill in the gap. I painted the UV resin gold to blend it in with the shoe base. The shoes looked very wonky, so I painted some gold details and glued on some accessories of camera to make it look less obvious. I made her a guitar. I sculpted it in Blender and printed it in white resin, and I made many mistakes when making this guitar, and that's why I didn't like the guitar this much. At first I tried to paint on some UV resin to make the guitar glossy and shiny, but I didn't like the result, and I tried to remove all the UV resin, which wasn't easy, and there were so many still a lot of UV resin left on the guitar, so I tried to brush on some micro glitters to make this less obvious, but it made the guitar look very messy. And yeah, and the worst part about this is that the guitar is broken now. I snapped the neck and after this video, but yeah, I definitely have to make this guitar again eventually. I made a necklace of camera, and with that the doll is done. Woohoo, isn't that amazing? The doll is done. Everybody please clap, I don't know.